Welcome back to Under Oath. Today we have actor, producer, director, singer, and teacher, Joey Travolta. Joey, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
What I love about what you're doing now is I don't even know if it exists anywhere on the planet with your studio Inclusion Films and your new series called Lights, Camera, Friendship on the Spectrum. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. We, as you know, we train adults with developmental and intellectual disabilities in filmmaking, and we also produce content. And one of it is a show, Lights, Camera, Friendship on the Spectrum, where we took 40 adults on the autism spectrum in 3 different cities, in Lodi, California, Valdosta, Georgia, and Amelia Island, Florida. And the city becomes a character in the piece. What we wanted to do is teach how to form friendships. A lot of folks on the spectrum are not included, or they have trouble with communication. And we wanted to give them tools to make it easier for them. So we took them totally outside their comfort zone. They had a roommate that they'd never met before. We gave them friendship exercises, dance classes, cooking classes, scavenger hunts around the city for them to get out into the city and meet people and form those relationships. And it's really giving them a voice. And the difference after the 5, 6, 7 days that we were them, it was just incredible. And so many of them are still remain friends, a year and a half later. It's pretty incredible.
Now, your basic introduction to autism is through being a special needs teacher, growing up, having this around your family. I mean,
Yes.
a lot of people had no clue, like I didn't have an idea what autism was. I know that there was this thing going around. It wasn't very prevalent. You might have saw 1 or 2 kids, and now it's an explosion.
Yeah. I mean, when I started the programs, it was 1 in 166, and I think it's 1 in 32 now. I forget what the exact number is, but and it's widened the spectrum too. And I'm just happy that we're able to give people skills to go out into the world, because sometimes it's having that confidence. It's navigating the gray areas. When I interview a lot of the kids, there's a lot of fun and sarcasm and gray. And I always say that if you get me with my dry sense of humor and the gray areas, then I've done my job. And these kids have such great sense of humor, and they're kind, and all of those things. You just have to get to know them and give them an opportunity, give them a seat at the table. And that's what we're hoping to accomplish here.
My son, like I said, is on the spectrum.
How old is he?
He's 19 now, which means he's aged out of a lot of programs.
Right.
And we're in constant search for finding a place where he can belong. And we're very fortunate in Orlando. We have a great community, and he
Yeah.
has a daily thing to do. And it's so difficult because you've heard the line, if you've seen one kid on the spectrum, you've seen one kid. And
That's correct.
the differences between these children are absolutely night and day. And our schools aren't really prepared to deal with kids that aren't the same in every area, that they each need special attention. And I assume you had to go through that when you were a teacher.
Well, I was a teacher a long, long time ago, and I taught at an orphanage for children. My teaching method was very much like the play Hamilton. I performed it, coming from an arts family, and that got very, very taxing, as they say, when you have to prepare a lesson plan. It's like writing a play. But my theory was that if kids can watch TV for 5 hours, and now even more with the internet, if I can make my lesson plan interesting enough, I think I could get to them, and it worked. But I ended up going into show business, like every special ed teacher does that when they're giving all their money back to the kids. And I would be out on the street if I was a teacher, unfortunately, because the teachers are the ones that should be getting paid, because their responsibility is just it's unbelievable. We're the teachers are responsible for molding our children, and that's why it's so important. What's your son's gift?
It's interesting when they talk about autism and superpowers and things like that.
Yeah,
My son has a great memory.
yeah,
He can talk. He loves to ask you questions, and he
yeah.
remembers every. He'll ask you about every relative you've ever had, and he'll remember those. And years later, he'll come up to somebody. He goes to the parks a lot,
Hmm.
and he'll go to places, and people will be like, he'll go, "Oh, Sarah," and they'll look at him. He goes, "How's Cynthia?" And who's Cynthia? Your mother.
Yeah,
And
right.
it's so strange, but a lot of people ask that, and I think there's every kid, I think, focuses on something else, and I think when you lack a certain skill, other abilities get stronger. Like if you can't see, your hearing changes. You
Yeah,
rely on different things, and I notice with kids on the spectrum, a lot of kids rely on different gifts, and
yeah,
not like they're super strong or they run fast, but just little
yeah.
things that they're able to do easier than I would.
Well, that's why I asked, what's
Yeah,
their gift?
yeah.
Because they all have a gift. And that's what you build on, the gift. And, he's got a great memory. There's plenty of work out there for people that have great memories and are very, very meticulous, like editing. My staff in Bakersfield, I have, I think, 6 or 7 on the spectrum that work full time for me. And these are people that we trained whether you're going to go into the film business or not, filmmaking, everything that goes into it goes into everyday life. Collaboration, communication, those are the skills that you need to do any job. Yeah, it's applicable in anything, whether you're going to be a filmmaker. We just use that because it's a great way to teach. You become a family when you make a film and you have an outcome, you have the film. Our outcome is the series. Now, the other important thing, and I forget whether I mentioned it, that the crew on this, 10 of the 16 crew members were on the spectrum, and 2 of the 3 post production were on the spectrum as well. And the whole cast was on the spectrum. So it's a great example of what can happen when someone's giving an opportunity. And you connect the dots. It's always about connecting the dots.
One of the things that was difficult for me when it first happened was I would meet other parents, and other parents would be, "No, my child's fine. He just has OCD or something else like that." And I think there was a stigma attached to it for such a long time. And I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to do that. And I held my son out there, and I allowed when people met Jacob, they were introduced to autism, or at least our version of it. And I thought that was a very important thing to do, because the world is a ridiculously cruel place when people don't understand.
Yeah, it is. It's unbelievable how cruel it can be. Well, we create a safe place, and it's a seat at the table. As my dad was the most kindest man, and the gift that he gave all of us, the 6th sibling, uh, is uh, is inclusion and making sure everybody was treated the same. Everybody had a seat at the table, and nobody was better than anybody else. We're all here. I mean, we share this planet, and it's just so important that everybody's included.
When we talk about, I'm also an attorney, so I get the opportunity to help. And while I don't do a lot of this, we do they have guardianship programs where some of these children, when they get to be 18, they can't take care of themselves. They can't take care of
Yeah,
their health care. So their parents need to be responsible for them.
right.
And the biggest thing that I find that parents aren't paying attention to is the future, that after they die, their children are going to outlive them by 40, 50 years.
Yeah,
And they don't start paying attention to it till they're dying. And I had a parent say to me, "I have 30 days to live. I don't know what I'm going to do with my son." And I was like, you need to beg, borrow, and steal. You need to find whatever you can. And I think that is the one thing in the community that people don't pay attention to because they kind of like bury it because it causes them a lot of sadness, like it does me.
Well, and you want to protect your child. It's a fear of any parent who has a child with special needs. What's going to happen when I'm not here? So that's why they need certain skills and to be able to understand things. And when this series screened at several film festivals, and the parents saw it, it was, oh, I didn't know that about my son. I didn't know that about my daughter. I didn't know that they had those kind of communication skills, because they're never asked. That's what I love about interviewing, because I do interviews with everybody. And in the film camps, I do the same thing because most of the time they're not asked what their opinion is. I ask for advice like when we do the camps, I'm asking for advice on my marriage and being a grandpa and doing all these things. And they're ready to give that advice and good advice too. So, and that's what the series I want people to come away with, that this is a gifted group of people. And we just have to see that and open our hearts and minds and all of that. And we're all just human beings here.
Now, you're one company. How much are you hoping for that this becomes epidemic, that other companies will go, okay, we're going to open a space for a child on the spectrum, an adult on the spectrum, to allow them to participate, to allow them to be part of the creative world?
What is it? Oh God, I can't think of the name of the company right now, but Jersey Mike's is a great example of getting involved with the disabilities community. We recently did a job, the production company side of it for the Doug Flutie Foundation, where they had a young man with autism that is a marathon runner, was running from Jersey Mike's to Jersey Mike's in Fresno, California, and they hired us to do it. Now, all of a sudden, all these young people on the spectrum are seeing a crew of professionals that we trained. And even on the set of Lights, Camera, Friendship, to see someone like them that are working in skilled positions, it's just creating those opportunities. I've had so many people from HR say to me, well, if we hired somebody with autism and it didn't work out, what are we going to do? If it doesn't work out, I'm not going to give you somebody that's not going to be able to do the job. All we're looking for is an opportunity, a foot in the door. And that's what we need.
I'm from Central Florida, so your brother has a place here and everything.
Yeah.
And I was actually inspired by his son about how I was going to raise my own, and that I was not. I would hear stories about Jed, how he would be at this group, and he was such a lovely child, and he made people learn so much by just meeting him, that I was inspired to do the same with my son. For example, my son's in our commercials. We do commercials, and my son will say, enjoy the movie or with the parks. And it's amazing the thousands of lives he's touched and educated because I didn't allow myself to be embarrassed by the situation. I didn't allow myself to not allow him to be out there because I thought if he has one thing to contribute to the world, this might be the biggest contribution he can make.
And even though Jet was nonverbal, he said so much. It's what is it? He teaches you patience. He teaches you. He didn't have a voice, but he had a voice. If you know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
and my brother
absolutely.
just was an adoring father, and that relationship. Oh, it's just. Jet was very, very special.
When people ask me about it, I say the only thing I can say is I would be a much more terrible human being if my son wasn't born.
I'm not even going to make me cry.
I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
It would be interesting. I don't know how much you touch upon the parents. It's always while the children are interesting, it's the parents and how they feel about it always surprises me about how they fight to stay married.
Hmm.
This is unbelievably difficult on a relationship. The levels of divorce at the autism community are huge,
Yeah.
because what you deal with on a daily basis can be troubling, especially in their early years.
Yes.
So I love that your stuff is out there. I watched the trailer. I can't wait to watch the series. And I think it's
Thank you.
incredibly important that people are out there like you putting a light on this issue that we just kind of go,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I know somebody. He's a sweet boy. He does a lot of math, or he he does this, he does that,
Yeah.
and people don't know the real history and background what these kids live with.
Well, you know what? Next time, when you finish watching the series, why don't we bring a couple of the cast back on and do something?
I would love to do that. I think that's
Yeah.
ungodly important, and I
Yeah.
love the idea, and I think it's very important that the empathy, and I learned that with my own son. I had to empathize with what he was dealing with, not how I felt about it, but I had to
Right.
do, and I can't put myself in his shoes. But I do my best to get as close as I can to it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, I commend you as a dad, and thank you for using my brother as an example of that. That's special, man.
It was very inspirational for me, and it's also devastating at the same time. So I do
Yeah.
understand how you feel about it.
Yeah.
Now, how many parents come up to you, and this is a
yeah.
nobody can thank you enough for what you're doing. No parent, and I'm sure hundreds of parents tell you all the time, I can't thank you enough for being out there,
Yeah.
and maybe my kid will take a little less crap because of what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thank them for giving me the opportunity to work with their kids because I get more out of it than they do. Believe me, it's just I love working with this population, and I wish I was 20 years younger so I can continue and keep it going because I really enjoy working with them, and there's so much gift to give and love, and I don't know, I just.
What's amazing to me is that you started a career, you wanted to be an actor, you were an actor, you were a singer, and the truth is the most important thing you have done is this. And the
Yeah.
impact you have on the world is so much more grand now.
Well, I always say to my wife, I wish, I'd done this 30 years ago instead of, 20 years ago or whatever. She said, you weren't ready for it then. You learned all the skills. So I learned filmmaking from being behind the camera as an actor. I'm a self-taught filmmaker. And I knew what I wanted to do and started putting these things together. But that whole thing of what goes into filmmaking is the thing that inspired. And what a great way to learn. If I could learn it, anybody could learn it. And I'm just glad that we're doing this, and I want to continue as much as I can.
I really can't thank you enough for what you've done, what you're producing, what you're doing for the world. Why don't you tell us exactly how we can see this ten episode series?
Okay, it's on what is it? It's on Red Coral Universe, and if you go to uh, love, if you go to friendshiponthespectrum.com, it gives you everything. Friendshiponthespectrum.com.
Well, Joey, thank you much, and I thank you for
Thank you.
accommodating this time.
Okay,
It's one of my favorite interviews. I really appreciate it, Joey.
thank you. All right, you take care, my friend.